Thank you. Mr. Brooks, Superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming out. A simple start here. Next week, the governor has traditionally designated the next week in October of each year as Board of Education Recognition Week. And it just so happens that our meeting typically falls the week prior to that, so we celebrate it at our board meeting. And I just want to take a quick moment to say that this is an all-volunteer group. Our Board of Education is an elected group of officials, but they are all volunteer. And to spend a little time saying to them, thank you for the work that you do on behalf of our students, on behalf of our taxpayers, on behalf of our community, is an important moment to take. So from me as your superintendent, and certainly as a community, we do appreciate the hard work and time that you folks put into that. Yes, we are early in the school year, so this is kind of a pay it forward thank you for what's to come as the school year progresses, but I know the work is hard, and it's very appreciated by me, the dedication and time that all of you put into this. So from me, thank you very much, and as a small token, there's a blanket to keep you warm tonight because it's a little chilly in here, so you can feel free to unwrap your blanket and bundle yourselves up because it is a little chilly in here tonight. But thank you very much for the very hard work that you do, and I'd ask if everyone would join me in thanking them for the work that they do. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Tonight you're going to see a presentation after our Students of the Month on a financial planning perspective. It's really our auditing report, and it's an important piece of the puzzle in how we put a school year together in taking a look at our financial position. And if I can kind of preempt that discussion when it comes up on the agenda, our financial position is very strong. So we're in a very good place. I think it's important to know that we have shepherds of your taxpayer dollars at this dais and those that work in our auditing firm that we hire that really take very, very good care of the money that has been entrusted to us. So I'm happy to say that we'll hear that tonight from our auditor, and we will continue to make sure that that is a primary focus of our purpose with the taxpayers' dollars. And finally, with me, the policy committee is currently reviewing an update to our sexual harassment policy. Recently, there have been some changes in the laws and regulations concerning sexual harassment, and as an employer, we have to update our policies related to that. So our policy committee is currently doing that, and I would anticipate the board to be able to review an update to that policy as a first read policy change at our first November meeting, unless there's something that pushes it out to the second meeting of November.
So that means you want us to read the email you sent and get
correct.
That back to you. Okay.
Yes, the policy committee, I appreciate your work again on behalf of the school district and our ability to stay current with laws, rules, and regulations. So thank you very much. And with that, I'm finished.
Okay, we're going to move on to Student of the Month. Where would you like to start?
Let's start with the elementary school.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce our art teacher, Ms. Julie Boylan, and our MES Student of the Month for October, who's very excited, and that is Chloe Costa, third grader. Come on up.
Zoe, she is a model student. She is respectful in every way and someone that all of her classmates can look to as an example. She has a passion for art and is always putting an effort into all of her work. She even taught me something new. The first time I taught her art class, she was able to show me that oil pastels and water combined make a nice effect. So thank you, Zoe, for being so wonderful. Thank you.
Unfortunately, our middle school student couldn't make it tonight, so we're going to move on to our high school student, and we'll come back to the middle school student at a future meeting. So, Mr. Lawler?
Good evening. First, want to start by thanking two of our board members. Mr. Cantone, thank you for setting up our Master the Mainframe event that our students participated in last Saturday. And Mr. Kuha, thank you for your work to get us into Sonotech and to start what we hope is a future where it changes our instruction in the school building, and also we have internship opportunities for our kids to get real working experience in the manufacturing and engineering fields. So thank you both. Megan Greiner is our Student of the Month. I'd like to ask you to come up at this time, Megan. So Megan had an injury last year. She broke her leg in March, a skiing injury, something called a spiral fracture. I never heard of it before. She explained it to me, and then I looked it up. And so I told Megan she was going to be Student of the Month in September, and she goes, "This is just because I broke my leg, right?" And that's not true. To watch Megan, she doesn't know what I know, which is that people go through things. Things happen in people's lives, and it's the way they react to them and how they come back and how they put effort forward that really separates them. So Megan had an army. She's got friends. Two of them are actually here today to support her. Her parents both drove her in, made sure she was here. She was wheeled around the building for a period of time. And I have to tell you, her grades didn't suffer one bit. In fact, she had an extraordinary year last year in what I'm going to call a college everything program in her junior year, and the same thing this year as a senior. And Chloe, if you're looking to, for a role model in the future, this is who you want to become down the road. Megan's teachers say she's motivated, determined, honest, dependable, hardworking. She's got an incredibly bright future. For a period of time, like I said, she was certainly inspiring us in the school with her efforts, and we're just really proud of her. She's a fantastic young woman, and the sky is the limit. Congratulations.
Families, thank you very much for coming out tonight. We truly appreciate it. And Zoe and Megan, it's really nice to see you here tonight and take a little bit of time to recognize some wonderful things about you as a student. So when I hear things like I teach teachers how oil and water can interact and really make some cool stuff on.
We do a lot of work to make sure your internal controls are in place, your processes are in place. We test them before we even get to look at the books here to make sure we can depend on the books. As you can see here, we noted no areas of concern. So therefore, we want to continue to do a report. If you look at this page, the biggest thing that we can show you, we can turn to page 2, and I'll go back to page 1 in a minute when we talk about the reserves, is the other thing is one of the biggest things school districts do now is they got to do strategic planning, both operational and for facilities planning. The state came down a few years ago. They're looking for a 3 to 5 year plan for schools to not just do year by year, but 3 to 5 years. You're doing that. And each year they're working on. That's one of the things we did both in the finance committee and the your audit committee this past two nights. But what we're doing here is showing that you're very consistent in both your revenues and your expenditures. You took the only thing in 2018 it's compared to the 17 and 16 is that you took a $1 million hit this past year. It was saved, though. There's two big areas. One was in the tax area, and the other one was the state aid. What you planned on getting and what you got was a big difference. But you were able, when Patrick noticed that and the board noticed it, they cut back on the expenditure side, therefore making up the difference. So you only took a 1.5 instead of a 2.6. That shows that you did lose in revenues. So here again, your business office and your board and your superintendent is working great to make sure that every dollar they get is used wisely. Okay, the biggest thing about your financial statements is education. You try to have your programs, your academics, your support, so every child gets a chance to succeed in a way for the taxpayer also without a great burden. You do that. In this current budget that you're working in right now, you gave back what we call reserve money of $3 million of monies that used to keep your taxes almost level from the year before. In addition to that, we're going to be going into our reserves now. In January 2017, the governor signed a law into act where school districts got to be very transparent on the financial records of the district. A lot of things now have to be part of your website. And the biggest thing that we'll be talking about tonight is your reserves. The reserves are made up of basically three criteria. One, the board has to have a policy first, which they do. Two is that they need what they call a reserve plan. For every reserve that they do have, they have to spell out the purpose, the funding, why they're going to use it, how they're going to, if they don't use it no more, you'll see right here what happens with that money. Also, there's one more that you don't see there that they're going to be probably acting on tonight is what they call a repair reserve. Back several years ago, the district received a grant from Dynegy. It's been sitting in the capital fund, not being used because it didn't meet the criteria of why they got the money. That's why they're establishing a repair reserve, because the repair reserve is a one-time item. If you see something needs to be fixed, a boiler goes and you got to fix it, that's what the money's for. It's not for a continuation of one-shot deal. That is what the repair reserve is all about. You don't worry about the aid on it because it's not the purpose behind it. It's to fix things in an emergency. Once you pass that, there's $521,000 that's going into it from this Dynegy thing. You then can, in future years, add to that only if the voters approve to you to add to that. But there's two criteria. Once it's established, it can be used two ways. One, the board can declare an emergency. Something breaks and you got to get it fixed. They can declare the emergency, they fix it, but the board has to make sure that the money that they took out of that reserve goes back into that reserve within 2 years. Secondly, during a regular board meeting, you can have a public meeting about a thing that needs to be fixed. Therefore, and the public has a say, they talk about it before the board votes, and if they do it that way, you don't have to replenish to repair reserve. There's two steps you follow, okay? But if you're looking at this, these are the reserves that you had, and what I do when I do present, I do a 3-year analysis of how they look. If you look at 2016, 2017, you'll see pretty much the numbers were staying exactly as they are. The first one is the ERS, Employee Retirement Reserve. That is money that can be set aside for future to offset the employee retirement reserve. And this past year, in your 2018-19 budget, $847,000 of the $3.7 million was used as appropriation to keep your taxes lower. In addition to that, you're still under, the 3.7 is under a 5-year average that you can have. You're about $200,000 under, so it's building up. And what happens with that reserve, you have to use it or lose it. So what happens, the district could use the 487, but at the end of the year, if it wasn't used, it goes back into the reserve. So it's a cycle, it's just ongoing cycle for a school district as a source of money if they need to, come up with something during the course of the year. The tax cert, the unemployment, and the insurance reserve. Each one has criteria of why you have them, and if they're not used, you have to basically abandon them. Reserve stays, the money goes. What I mean by that, the money has to go somewhere else. The tax cert reserve works on a year basis. If the money was put in and it hasn't been used within a 4-year period, it has to go back into the general fund balance. That's what happened in that one. Unemployment, same thing. That was set up several years ago when everything was, when people were probably getting laid off or worried about it. The board put money aside to protect the district in case they had some big claims against them. That was never used. You still, each year in your budget, operating budget, you put money in. That doesn't, so that has no use no more for the district. That comes out. Okay, the insurance reserve, that also falls back about several years ago, when you had the big issue with financial and stuff like that. That's cleared up. We have no problem. That can no longer sit in the insurance reserve. So this year, at the finance committee meeting, with Patrick and the finance committee, they said, okay, what can we do with these 3 numbers? They said, in 2016, the taxpayers approved a $10 million 10-year capital reserve for future renovations and upgrades in your buildings. What they did was took 1.5 million of that 2.2 million and put it into there. The balance of that went down into your fund balance, and then they appropriated $900,000 back into the ERS reserve going forward. All the money is still intact. It's just where it is, where they have it now is most useful for the taxpayer. Because in the bottom of workers' comp, even though you pay insurance for workers' comp insurance, districts are still liable in case they do have an accident, that they have an upfront cost. This is to protect the district again. It's like a savings account in case somebody gets hurt and the workers come say, do you owe us this money? You have it there without affecting your operating budget. That's where I commend the board, is where you're working both with current operations and long-term planning. That's the key to school districts nowadays. If they have that, they can go, they can have peaks and valleys, but never affect the overall tax effect to a taxpayer. The other thing is, like we talked about that capital, the repair reserve, they're going to be voting on it tonight, or the resolution tonight, and they also going to be a resolution to basically accept what the board decided, through the finance committee to handle the reserves going forward. The biggest thing is, as the district looks at future projects, they have money setting aside to help offset any liability or debt. Okay, basically what helps you there at 1.5 will help you not borrow money for a capital project, or will help you in your upfront, what we call soft costs, with the architects and the bond councils, where they bill you up front. You don't have to borrow money. It's all there for you. It's all, the way it's set up now, it's a savings for the district in the long run. That's basically an overview of your financial status for 2017-18.
Any of the board members have questions? Okay. Thank you very much. You're welcome. We'll now move on to public comment on the agenda items. Are there any public comments on the agenda? Okay. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approve the contracts, agreements, and reports as presented. Personnel recommendations, claims audit letter and reports, audit report, reserve fund plan, budget transfers, CSE, CPSE report, financial reports for September, donations for the backpack program. Can I have a motion? Susan, second. Tony. Any discussion? Okay, please cast your vote. Okay, we'll move on to recommended actions, repair reserve letter. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the
I'm
recommend...
sorry, Mr. Milazzo, if I could, I just want to note, because it was a point
Oh,
of
you had an
interest
appointment?
about...
Okay, sorry.
It was just I'm sorry, I'm on 30-second delay.
It's okay.
We did just appoint 2 new drama club advisors for the middle school. I know that that was a point of concern from some of our students, certainly as the question was asked by our other Board of Education representative and also some families. So we're very happy that we're moving forward with our drama club program at the middle school. Mrs. Clinton, thank you very much for your efforts to make sure that that program came together, and I know that the children are going to be very excited to begin their preparation for their production. So thank you very much, everybody, for that. So moving in a good direction.
Yep. Recommended actions, reserve repair letter. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools of the Marlborough Central School District, hereby authorizes the establishment of the repair reserve as presented. Can I get a motion? Susan, second. Tony, any discussion? Everybody's seen the proposal, and this will now give us the ability to have a separate reserve for repairs, which is separate from the capital for the smaller items. Okay. No other discussion? Okay, go ahead and vote. Does anybody have any old business? Does anybody have any new business? Any other items? So it's that time in the meeting where we open it up for recognition of district residents and others. If they have anything, please come to the podium and state your name. Motion to adjourn. We have no executive session tonight. John, second. James. All in favor? Thank you, everybody.